they're not allowing it to be late. Like it has to be out by the June 30th deadline or whatever. So I don't know. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Waving at the cat.
Okay. If we could just hold tight for a minute, I want to make sure that this is successfully going live. Okay, we're on. 301, Mayor.
Okay, I call the meeting of the April council meeting for Mayor and City Council order. Roll call whenever we're all ready.
Okay. Commissioner Donnie Carter,
Here.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth,
Here.
Commissioner Kevin Grove,
Here.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie,
Here.
and Mayor Robert Flanagan.
Here, Elizabeth.
Okay. Let me get the agenda on the screen. Okay. At this point, we'd be looking for an approval of the agenda.
Okay. In motion, a second to approve the agenda, also the minutes from our last group of meetings.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. You want to do roll call vote?
Yes, please. Commissioner Donnie Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth,
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Grove,
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie,
Yeah.
and Mayor Bob Flanagan.
Okay. Will also be motion second to approve all the various reports from the different departments in the city. And I understand, Commissioner Nina, you have something you wanted to add. So I need a motion second to approve all the work reports.
I move that we enter into the record all the work reports.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded, roll call vote?
Commissioner Donnie Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth,
Yes,
Commissioner Kevin Grove,
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie,
Yes.
and Mayor Robert Flanagan.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
I have something to add to my report, which is that the water quality reports just came in, and they will be available on the city website, and they will be mailed to residents with their water utility bills.
very good. Thank you, Nina.
You're welcome.
Let's see, public hearings, we're not showing having any public hearings this time, so we'll go to old business. Ordinance 2020-02.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mhm.
This ordinance was introduced at the February council meeting, and it was approved on first reading, and the public hearing was set for the March council meeting. Due to the rapidly unfolding events related to COVID-19, that public hearing was canceled. In addition, there's been some changes to the ordinance since February that I would like to go over briefly tonight. There is a marked up version online, but I'll go over the clean version with you here today. A few definitions were changed. And at the at the March work session, you did answer some questions in regards to leak adjustments and how those leak adjustments would be handled. And those have been included in this leak adjustment policy in terms of that it's once per owner, and the leak adjustment policy begins on July 1 of 2020. So any past leak adjustments don't play into effect or come into effect here. It's a clean slate, so to speak. And then the last section that's been added is section 613, which relates to equivalent dwelling units, or what we're referring to as now as Frostburg dwelling equivalents. The state uses a term equivalent dwelling unit to calculate certain things in terms of water and sewer planning. That's, I know, in how our CSO projects get evaluated to some extent. And a state-defined EDU, or equivalent dwelling unit, is 250 gallons per day. The city, a while ago, at the beginning of the creation of the CSO surcharges, calculated the average household consumption at that time, and it was 38,000 gallons per year, which is about 104 gallons per day, so substantially lower than the state rate. And this metric is how we determine the water and CSO, or combined sewer overflow surcharges, that we do to pay the debt on Piney Dam and some other water infrastructure projects, as well as pay for portions of the combined sewer overflow projects. A resident brought this up, and in terms of an explanation of the city's EDUs, and Elaine and I agreed that it was best to make this codified rather than just a city policy. And in those discussions, it seemed to make most sense to just name the city's calculation a unique name to reduce confusion going forward. So we came up with the term Frostburg dwelling equivalent. And this right now outlines the existing city policy, in which single family residential is 1 FDE, and then for commercial it would be 1 FDE per 38,000 gallons, and that's calculated based on the 4 prior quarters, or the 12 months when that's calculated each year. One thing that's been added that is not in our current policy is for multifamily residential. we're proposing to change it instead of 1 FTE per unit to 1 FTE per unit or 1 FTE per 38,000 gallons, whichever's higher. So that is kind of a summary of the changes from what was originally presented in February. The entire ordinance is available online for residents to review at their convenience. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion and a second to first approve the amendments to the ordinance on the second reading and also set the May 21st, 2020 council meeting as an advertised public hearing on ordinance 2020-02.
I move that we approve ordinance 2020-02. On first reading. Or is it what reading?
Second reading.
Sorry, on second reading.
Second. Okay, moving second, roll call vote.
Commissioner Donnie Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth,
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Grove,
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie.
Yes.
Okay, and Mayor Robert Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. The next item of business is ordinance 2020-03, and I believe Elaine Jones, the Director of Finance, is on the call to go over the budget with you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon, Elaine.
Today I am formally presenting ordinance 2020-03 for your consideration. This ordinance includes the operating budget for the city for the year ending June 30, 2021, the scheduled fees, and the proposed allocation of hotel motel tax revenue. The draft budget was presented to the Mayor and Council last month, and the budget was discussed again in detail at your work session last week on April 9th. The balanced budget for fiscal year 2021 reports $14.8 million in revenues and expenses. The budget ordinance reflects a decrease of about $1.7 million in expenses compared to the draft budget, which was presented last month. As we discussed last week, the COVID-19 pandemic has created uncertainty for municipal revenue projections. The budget ordinance reflects decreases in revenues in the corporate fund based in part on guidance that we've received from the Maryland Comptroller's Office as well as the Maryland Municipal League. Water, sewer, and surcharge revenues are also budgeted to decrease based on reduced water consumption. Consumption has decreased year by year due to conservation measures of our customers, and the impact of COVID-19 restrictions and closings are expected to further shrink consumption among the city's commercial customers. The budget ordinance includes some tax and utility rate changes. The real estate tax rate will be 68 cents per $100 of assessed value. The 2-cent change is the first real estate rate increase in 4 years. So the real estate tax revenue, which is estimated about $2.3 million, is the primary revenue source for our general government operations. Water and sewer rates will also increase for all customers except for the bulk water sales to Allegheny County. The water surcharge and the CSO surcharge rates will be unchanged in this budget. And also, as we discussed previously, the trash rate will increase $1 per month per unit. So the new quarterly rate would be $38 per unit. To give you an idea of the practical impact of these rate changes on a typical inside city customer, for a small household that uses about 5,000 gallons of water per quarter, the total increase in their city utility bill would be about $20 per quarter, or $6.67 per month. For an average family household who uses around 15,000 gallons of water per quarter, the total increase in their city utility bill would be about $54 per quarter, or $18 per month, so less than $1 a day. So a copy of the budget ordinance and the fee schedule are available on the city's website. If there's any questions regarding the budget, I would be happy to address these questions with citizens or with you as the mayor and council. For citizens, my email address is available on the city website, or citizens can call and leave a voice message at my extension 103 at City Hall, and I will return the call as soon as I can. At this time, I'd request a motion and a second to approve the ordinance on first reading, provide an opportunity to present public comments, and set the May 21st, 2020 monthly council meeting as an advertised public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-03 on the first reading.
I'll second it.
Okay, so moving second. Liz, is there any public comment on our page?
There's one brief comment that we received. Number 2, considering this is by Lisa Van Houten. Considering the pandemic has stalled all government activity and spending and the economic downturn to the population, I see no reason to increase taxes starting in 2021, nor increase water and sewer rates.
Right. Anyone have any comment to that?
Well, it would blow our budget.
Pretty much. Anyone else? Okay, roll call vote whenever you're ready, Liz.
Commissioner Donnie Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth,
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Grove,
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie,
Yes.
and Mayor Robert Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is ordinance 2020-04. Earlier this year, it was requested that the city look at budgeting for increases for the salary of the mayor and council members. The last time salary increases were done for the mayor and council was in 1992. The new values of the new proposed salaries of $5,400 and $4,200 was determined by looking at the inflation factor between 1992 and February of this year. It's as we discussed at your work session last week, the budget includes a proposed salary increase that was discussed for city employees to be delayed until at least January 1 of 2021, rather than go into effect July 1, 2020. So this ordinance proposes that this would go into effect January 1 of 2021 as well. The charter requires that when adjusting the salary of the mayor and council, it has to be done for the future term. So this would need to be done and voted on at the May meeting. Should it take effect for any time in the following term. If there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion and a second for approval.
It's always possible for future council and mayor to amend that if it looks like the budget can't support that increase.
Yes.
Okay.
We could decide to wait a year if we wanted to, or whoever's in an off step one. It's just the idea that it would be in the budget and available if it's available. If not, I think that would be probably the first thing that a good mayor and council would look to adjust.
I agree.
Yes.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-04 on the first reading and set the May 21st council meeting as a public hearing.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded, roll call vote, Liz.
Commissioner Donnie Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth,
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Grove,
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie,
Yes.
and Mayor Robert Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay. The last one, City Attorney Michael Cohen is available to discuss the charter amendment for the 2020 Frostburg City elections. At your work session, we discussed the governor's executive order in regards to municipal elections. And you had indicated that you favored a mail-in election. And I've worked with the city attorney to provide him with that information to draft the charter amendment resolution. So I'll ask Michael to come online and discuss that with you.
All right. As you all know, the mayor or the governor passes executive orders from time to time to help us deal with COVID-19 related difficulties. And in this instance, one of the problems that many municipalities are facing is the manner in which the crisis is affecting its ability to conduct its elections. And what I'm understanding is that many of the municipalities whose elections are being disturbed are electing to proceed by means of mail-in ballots. Some are electing to continue the dates of their elections, but many of them are electing to hold them as scheduled. And what Frostburg wants to do is hold them as scheduled. So accordingly, the election is going to take place on June 2nd. And rather than having to deal with the issues related to changing the dates, and also more significantly to have to deal with health and safety related issues like the transmission of coronavirus. And yes, it is highly contagious, as everyone knows. A mail-in ballot makes the most sense, at least from my perspective. So normally when we do charter amendments, there are a lot of deadlines that come into play, sort of like a tap dance. You hold a public hearing, there's a set number of days for the public hearing. You have to give advance notice of the charter amendment. Then you hold your public hearing, then you vote on the resolution. And following the resolution, the public has a set number of days to bring a referendum challenging the charter amendment. The governor has seen fit to allow the municipalities to suspend the effectiveness of those provisions in state law, so as to make charter amendments pertaining to elections proceed much more quickly, so that the urgency of dealing with such issues is dealt with. So in this instance, the city is waiving many of those formalities and is just proceeding almost as it would with an expedited ordinance, all of which is authorized by the governor's executive order. So what it changes is that you can only vote by mail-in ballot, or not by mail-in ballot. You can only vote by what we're calling Frostburg election ballots. And they're typically just about the same thing as absentee ballots, except that you don't have to make any application for them. Additionally, you can either mail them in, or you can drop them off at a drop box on the day of the election. I think that, aside from what this charter amendment is, it makes better sense for everyone to avail themselves of the mail-in option for the simple reason and come to the situation where there might be a line to get to the be able to drop your ballot off in the drop-in box. So, if you're being extra safe, and I think everyone should be, mailed in. Let's see what else here. Ordinarily, when the election's completed, there's a set amount of time, and there's a very short set amount of time where the election board to certify the results of the election. Since a lot of votes are going to be, hopefully the vast majority of votes will be cast by mail-in, you need to take into account that mail delivery usually takes effect to 2 to 3 days, usually, but there's always exceptions to that. So this allows the election board more time to certify the election results, so that reasonably assured that all of the mail has come in. So there's the earliest date that they can certify the elections is 1 week from the date the elections are held. So that would be June 9th at 7:00 p.m. That'd be the earliest they can certify. They would have the option of certifying as late as June 11th at 7:00 p.m. And that would also give a little bit of extra time for them to do what they need to do, because now they'll be tallying by ballots from mail-ins. Well, it's pretty much the same thing actually, but now they'll be able to deal with the tallying of the votes within the same time frame effect, essentially, as would be the case with the normal election. But at the end of the later date is June 11th, which is 9 days following the date of the election. So just as allows for a little bit of extra time due to the fact that so many of the ballots are going to be mailed in. And that's pretty much the crux of the changes.
Is there like a deadline? Is it a postmark date that is going to be chosen as a deadline, or is there more like a window?
The date is the postmark date is the date of the election.
Okay.
So if you're late in the postmarking, your ballot will be excluded from consideration.
Okay. And then my understanding was that the other option, which we haven't discussed as much, is postponement, postponing the election. Was that also in the governor's executive order, right?
It's allowed for.
Mm-hmm. I know that the brief discussion that we had about that involved the uncertainty, like when would it be safe to hold an election, and if it's not safe, then we'd have to go to mail-in anyways. That's why, to me, it seemed a better option to do the mail-in.
I think we want to try to keep moving forward, and try to stay within our 2-year term window, or that's going to change everything as well. So we can do this. We can do this by mail, and keep our wheels turning, so to speak. I think it's best for everyone. Keep continuity.
Well, and I think that doing it by mail, we may get a lot more people involved in this election than we do in a normal election, where we get about 25% of the people to come out.
Yep.
And one other thing too is that essentially that by the terms of this charter amendment, the absentee ballot provisions are going to be suspended for this particular election. So you don't need to make application to get your ballot. Basically, everything is, aside from the drop-offs, is pretty much treated as though it would be an absentee ballot. Manage the application process.
Anyone else? Do we have any comment? Email comment, Liz?
Well, there is still the tight turnaround time between the deadline for filing and getting the ballots out. Does that look doable?
Yes. The deadline to file is the first week of May, and I will work with the Ethics Commission to meet virtually. They'll be emailed all of the candidate application forms in advance, and we'll have a virtual meeting to review those. And then from there, that will give me the direction needed to work with the Board of Elections to prepare the ballot. And I think we can get those ballots drafted and printed within a day or two. That shouldn't be an issue. So that puts us to the end of the second week of May. And then I think by early the following week, the third week of May, they'll be most definitely going out in the mail. So I think it's doable. We just will need to be prepared in advance in the next 2 to 3 weeks for that. Get the materials and envelopes and just how we're going to do everything figured out. But I do think it's doable.
Okay.
Anyone else?
So Mayor, I guess I would like to ask Michael to give you guidance on how the motion should be made. And then second, I do have 3 public comments that I'd like to read into the record.
Okay.
I just say make the motion the same way you would with an ordinance. Make a motion to approve the passage of Charter Amendment Resolution number 51.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Worded the same way I just worded it.
Okay. Liz?
Okay. Would you like to do the motion in second prior to the public
Oh,
comment?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I need motion second, please.
I'll make a motion to approve Charter Amendment 51.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded.
Okay. This is from Karen Sarles. I'd like to chime in and request that our elections take place at a later date. I feel that the current stay-in-place order and quarantine directly affect the process. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
The second one is from Kit Pepper. As you make your decision about the upcoming election, I ask that you take into consideration several different important aspects of both campaigning and ensuring that voters have an unquestionable opportunity to participate in a free and fair process. Before I get into the problematic election specifics, I would like to ask that each of you take seriously your obligation to be open and honest about your personal involvement in any issues that you participate in making. As elected officials, you have the obligation to disclose any personal agendas that you have before you vote on an issue. Some of this is legally mandated, and some is simply, yet more importantly, ethically suggested. Each of you holds a term that will be impacted by this election. That is known. However, whether you are seeking re-election is not currently known. I acknowledge your need to address the issue, and I'm not suggested that it is inappropriate. However, I do feel that it is in the public's best interest for each of you to disclose your personal intentions regarding re-election before you cast this vote. I am not implying that anyone has questionable intentions, but it would be too easy for a sitting member of this council to manipulate a situation that results in an election, in the election of an individual or two without any input from the public at all. That said, it was indicated that the decision was to do a mail-in election was made at the work session. I think a mail-in election is the way to go, but I'm concerned that there is not enough time. I'm concerned that enough time exists to do so in a way that allows full participation of the public, both as possible candidates and voters. I ask that you do move to a mail-in ballot, but also postpone the election date by at least 60 days. The ballot will have to be put in the hands of the voting public at least a week or two prior to the needed return date. This cuts the Frostburg election window, which is already very narrow, substantially. Given the current circumstances that make it even more difficult for any candidates to campaign, the fact that voting will start weeks before the election date itself make it almost impossible for the voting public to make a truly informed decision. Most people will not hold that ballot until right before the election. Many will mark it and return it right away. In national elections, voters get their information primarily from electronic sources. In local elections, actual community dialogue and interaction is an essential part of the process. As you know, there's little formal news on the subject of Frostburg elections this year, and this year no one will have the advantage of sitting around the VFW or the Elks and discussing this, or possibly meeting the candidates at the farmers markets. In a community of this size, most candidate and issue information is spread by word of mouth. The lack of that can only be remedied by a longer campaign period, given people time to communicate in new, different ways. Another fact that contributes to the need to postpone the election date is that we would be having 2 different mail-in ballots on the same day. This is not a process that is familiar to most voters or those handling the elections themselves. It is inevitable that people will be confused, returning ballots to the wrong place, or even not at all, because they did last week with a different ballot. It would be easy to make the case that having 2 different mail-in elections on the same day will remove well-meaning voters from the process. I have watched all of you work over the last couple years, probably as close as any resident of Frostburg could. While we have our disagreements, I feel that each of you have good intentions and are free from personal agendas that would muddy these waters. However, it is essential that the process itself not be open to that possibility or the perception of it. You have an obligation to provide as free and unencumbered election as possible. I think that requires you both to express your personal intentions regarding re-election and to extend the campaign window by at least 60 days. It is not feasible to think that the election will happen normally post-pandemic, but at least a longer window will remove the confusion issue and ensure that any interested candidates will have the opportunity to find new and welcome ways to interact with potential voters. Okay, that concludes the comments from Kit Pepper. I have one more. This is from Cassie Conklin. As a citizen of the city of Frostburg who deeply cares about the health and wellness of my neighbors, I urge the mayor and city council to postpone the upcoming general election scheduled for June 2. During last week's work session, which I watched remotely, the topic of election came up and was discussed for less than 8 minutes. Though Governor Hogan has issued an executive order that allows the city of Frostburg to postpone the election and move to mail-in voting, only one of those 2 scenarios was discussed. In other words, with 2 options on the table, mayor and council decided to examine one. What was missing from that conversation is an evaluation of how holding the election on June 2 could very seriously undermine the fairness of the final results, which will be determined a mere 46 days from now. First, potential candidates are asked to drop off their filing paperwork to City Hall. However, City Hall is closed indefinitely, and a search of the city's social media did not reveal any information about how those candidates should proceed with submitting their paperwork. Secondly, the filing deadline of May 4, while not yet lapsed, falls amid a pandemic which threatens the healthy, safety, and wellness of each and every citizen of our city. I recognize that some of my concerns are addressed by mail-in voting, and generally speaking, I agree that mail-in voting is a wholly democratic way to cast a ballot. However, in other mail-in voting scenarios, for example, in the state primary election, the candidate had been placed on the ballot long before the coronavirus crisis. Indeed, the filing deadline was Friday, January 24th for those elections. And moreover, these are primary elections, not general elections. Thus, to hold a candidacy period and a general election all within the time frame of a pandemic is an entirely unfair and underhanded situation. I sincerely hope that this unfairness is not being intentionally created by the mayor and council. Opposition candidates will be able to campaign for themselves, share ideas, or hear from the constituency they hope to represent. When I think back to the last election where Commissioner Forsyth's yard sign sat outside my house, where I watched her speak at the Women's Action Coalition and saw her at numerous church dinners and events, I can't help but wonder if she would have been elected if COVID-19 had been running amok simultaneously. Thus, by holding the election now, I feel as if the current council members have essentially elected themselves for 2 more years. There are other reasons to postpone as well. Certainly, the tight turnaround window to ensure the ballot is proofed, mailed, and returned is of a questionably short length. With such a short period of time, what happens if the ballots don't get out on time? I would hate to hear stories like those of Wisconsin about ballots that never reached voters. This is a critical time in our city, with an uncertain future due to the coronavirus as exhibited in the budget modifications presented last week. We need leadership who truly represents the interests of the citizens of our city. We will not have that without a free and fair election, and we will not have a free and fair election without postponing the date of the election. Thank you. That concludes the comments from Cassie Conklin.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. Anyone have anything they want to say?
Yeah, I think that, I think what Kit said about, people, letting everybody know if they're going to run again. I think that's a fair request.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no problem saying that I'm running again.
Yeah, I'm running again also.
I'm running again also.
I'm also running again.
As well.
I think we did address the turnaround time that Cassie brought up. As far as campaigning goes, people can still put out yard signs. People can use social media to campaign. We can't have public meetings, that's for sure. But when other candidates file, we can have a virtual candidate forum that could be set up. We could even have candidate questionnaires and their answers published in the paper. We can have copies of that made and put out on social media and the city's website. So there are a lot of ways that other candidates can be accommodated to make sure that their candidacies get out in front of the public. I don't think we'll run into any problem like Wisconsin ran into. It's a much smaller city, a much smaller amount of mail to handle and ballots to handle. So that really doesn't seem to be something that would happen here. But I think there are a lot of ways that people can campaign. I'm just thinking what I would do if I were, in a first-time candidate in this situation. One thing I would do would be, file as soon as possible. And so maybe what we could do is announce, make a really, as much of a public announcement as we can that people should file as early as possible and let them know the ways that we can accommodate them, like the virtual notification and notarization, and that the filing papers can be picked up and that sort of thing. We have to make sure that that gets out to the public so that everybody knows that they can still go ahead with their candidacy if they so desire.
Okay, thank you, Nina. Anyone else?
I have one more thing to say.
Mhm.
As far as postponement goes. I think if things drag on, I mean, people, even when it's announced that we can start coming out of the social isolation, it's not going to be, we're still not going to be able to have big public meetings. So I think that sort of campaigning can't go on anyways until maybe this fall, which would mean that we would be de facto dragging out our own terms for months and months, which also doesn't seem to be fair. Postponement can be as unfair as anything else. It's just kind of trying to figure out which thing is less unfair.
Right.
Right.
I think you make a real good point there, Nina, that general public might say, well, they stayed in office and they really didn't have to. They could have had a mail-in election, and there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking. Like I think against us if we would go that way, when again, our terms are set at 2 years and we're trying to abide by our charter. Yep. I agree.
Yeah, I think, I think everybody's at a disadvantage right now,
Exactly.
I think that, like you said, Nina, about, people coming out in the fall, or, a lot of people still then, even after they get told they can come out, are still going to have some fear of coming out. I believe that. It's going to take a while, even after they give the order, for people to get comfortable enough to get back out into crowds.
But that said, we should try to accommodate other candidates as much as possible.
Yes, just to comment on that, Commissioner Forsyth, the city's website, and it's been posted on the front of City Hall where people would normally pick up candidate forms, that all of the forms are available online. My phone number that anyone can reach me at every day, as well as my email address, have been posted on the website under the 2020 elections and on the city front door of the City Hall. So, and we do have a notary that works for the city, and she's agreeable to doing the Zoom meeting remote notarizations for any candidate. And, I can do a contactless delivery of anyone that would indicate that they're willing to file. I've obviously, however, I'm trying to do everything I can to make it as accommodate everyone as best as I can.
Maybe we can move the 2020 election part of the website up to the top of the landing page so it's more visible.
I can try to do that. We have to go to our web service provider to do that, but I'll work on that, and I'm sure that they will be able to accommodate that request.
Okay, we all good? Yep.
Mhm.
We've got a motion second on the floor. Roll call vote when ready, Liz.
Okay, Commissioner Donnie Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth,
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Grove,
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie,
Yes.
and Mayor Robert Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I do have a few general public comments. And then Mayor, I didn't know if you wanted Nick to give a brief report as well, if you wanted him to
Sure,
do
that
that
would be good.
first.
That would be good. Go ahead.
I
do your
didn't
thing
tell
first.
him in advance about this. So
I think Nick can handle it. I think he can.
Not a problem. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner. And as usual, even though we're in electronic format, if I talk too long, just wrap me down. I'm always ready.
We turn the
No,
switch.
Yep. Well, we're continuing many of our usual police activities, but it's not exactly business as usual with the COVID-19 challenges. For the month of March 2020, we had 501 incidents. That was compared to 787 incidents in March of 2019. And of course, it was really throughout the month of March that we began to see the restrictions on activity and business activity and some of those things. We certainly saw a notable impact. The total number of arrests we had in March 2020 compared to March 2019 was roughly half when you consider arrests of all type. We had about just over a third of the motor vehicle crashes. Excuse me. So, and really a lot of that was toward the end of the month as things really slowed down. We're continuing to make regular patrol checks because, as I mentioned at the work session, because we have less of our highly visible activity, our traffic stops and our school traffic details and some of those things. I've asked our police officers to log their patrol checks. That began with the parks. The city administrator and Parks and Recreation had asked us to specifically check the parks. So we began making logs of that. About a week ago, I asked them also to include logs of the neighborhoods and areas of the city that they check, just to show, where we've been and that we are continuing to be proactive, continuing to monitor activities in the city, and continuing to be around as needed. We've made a few modifications to our procedures. I believe I talked about that as well last week. Our officers were temporarily permitted to take certain non-emergency reports by telephone. They will be followed up on as appropriate. And that's simply a practice we modeled from the Maryland State Police and most other agencies, certainly in this area, if not across the state as a whole. But other than that, we still continue to respond to emergency incidents, incidents in progress, incidents where a suspect may be at the scene, and other situations where a police officer's presence would be needed there at the time. Things have been a bit slower with our community policing activities, which obviously saddens me. We really enjoy that. We try to really be not only involved in the enforcement and the policing aspect, but we work very, very hard to be fully integrated in the community and to do positive, fun, and proactive things. So we have not been able to do as much of that. We had a Coffee with a Cop event planned with the university, but that was canceled a while. That was tentatively set for April, but was canceled as things began to shut down. However, the city's Easter basket program was held on Saturday, and the fire department delivered the Easter baskets to the lucky winners. As you each know, and of course the mayor rode with the fire chief, and Commissioner Grove and I were part of the police escort around the city, and it was just such a positive thing. It's like no matter what happens negatively, no matter what challenge occurs, you always see people doing good things. You always see helpers coming out. You always see positive activities. And I'm very, very grateful to city government for making that happen, because what I saw driving around Frostburg for that event, I saw so many kids and families come out of their house, and it's almost kind of a negative time. I mean, it's a challenging time, and to see the joy on the faces of those children and their families was just absolutely incredible. So we were so glad to be a part of that, and I commend everyone.
It's a lot more popular on Facebook Live than this meeting is too.
Yeah,
I guess we got to give an Easter basket away.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the mayor has to put on bunny ears.
Sure. We'll have our matching bunny ears.
Yep, I think we're all still continuing to do good things. We still continue to have the same level of care and concern for our community that we always have each and every day. This is certainly an unprecedented event. Everyone is adjusting to it. I mean, all of our police officers are adjusting to new practices and new procedures and those sorts of things. And I think that's true of everybody. People are getting used to staying home, not going out and about to do their daily business. People are getting used to working from home. It's a time of challenge and a time of change, but we're always ready to adapt and always going to make things work no matter what. But other than that, that would conclude my report. I'm certainly glad to answer any questions you have or provide further comment.
Very good, Chief. Thank you very much. Please pass on to all your folks that we're thinking about them very much, okay?
Yes, sir, Mayor. You got it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Liz's final thoughts.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing, but other than that, hold on.
All in favor, vote of confidence, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Can you see the screen? My screen? Or
Yes.
you-
Yes.
Okay. All right. This is just a general comment. This is from Brandy Willison. Hello, I am a concerned citizen and I would like to offer a recommendation for the post office 6-foot apart issue. I would like to propose that the post office have an in and an out only sign at the doors. This 6-foot rule is hard to abide by when people are coming and going from the hallway entrance by the parking lot where we are supposed to wait. I think to enter by the parking lot doors and exit by the lobby doors would help us keep us all safer. Thank you for your time.
Very good. I think we can get in contact with our friends at the USPS.
Mhm.
Good idea.
That's a good, I think that's a good suggestion.
I'll actually see the postmaster tomorrow, so I will talk to her about it.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So
Okay, these, one comment I had already read, but I'll read the others. This is from Lisa Van Houten. As of April 14th, 2020, Allegheny County has 17 confirmed cases and 0 deaths with COVID-19. Therefore, the chance of contracting this disease is slim. Why aren't the staff working to finish the safety issue on Preston Street and the Mount Pleasant Park renovations? Social distancing is possible to resolve these issues. And item 3, the proposed delay on increasing staff, mayor, and council salaries at this time is fiscally prudent. Respectfully submitted, Lisa Van Houten. I did speak to our street department superintendent about this plate and road cones on Preston Street. They were working on replacing this storm inlet catch basin prior to the city taking precautionary measures with their employees to reduce contact with each other. Because of the nature of the work, it would require a couple people working in very close proximity to each other with concrete, bricks, and other things involved in a catch basin to set it in place. Cumberland Concrete would need to provide concrete, and an asphalt plant would need to be open to provide the asphalt as well.
Very good.
And I know that for a while they were still working on the renovations at the Pleasant Street Park, but that's been suspended as well.
I do not believe that's been suspended, Commissioner. The Parks and Recreation staff are just being staffed by the 2 regular full-time employees. We do not have the seasonal employees working, so I know that has put the full-time employees in grass mowing mode, doing their best to keep up with that this time of year.
Okay.
Yeah, the sand's down and the poles are up for the volleyball sand park. Looks real good.
I need to go up there again.
Anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
I just want to thank all the organizations in Frostburg that have been making masks, that have been offering services to run errands for those who are immunocompromised or otherwise are unwilling to go out. I just think that it really exemplifies the spirit of cooperation in the city, that so many people are reaching out and offering their services and helping each other. I love it, and thank you everybody who's doing their part, and I'm sure there are more that I'm not even aware of. It's a very giving city.
Very good. Thank you, Nan. Anyone else?
And also, I'd like to thank everybody who has dropped different things off at the police station, mask, food. It's really been wonderful to see all the people joining in.
Thank you, Kevin.
And as of this Saturday, everybody who's going out in public needs to wear a mask as per the governor's orders. So it's a reminder.
Okay. Does anything finally? Are you good?
I think that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you for working with this technology to conduct a public meeting.
Very, very good. All right. Thank you all for your time today. Michael, thanks for sitting in with us.
Yeah.
Everyone, please stay safe. Enjoy the brisk weather. Maybe walk around your backyard or maybe cut your grass. But please all stay safe. Best from all of us to all of you. The meeting is adjourned.